Stop cherry picking comps. Hey guys, it's Brad from probatehouseguy.com. So I'm a real estate investor who specializes in probate and inheritance properties. I've been doing flips, rentals, wholesales, all of the above for a number of years. And today I want to talk about one of my pet peeves. And this message today is I'm talking to new wholesalers out there or experienced wholesalers. Stop cherry picking comps. I can't tell you how many times I get emails in my mailbox for a wholesale deal, because I do buy deals from wholesalers. And I also wholesale deals myself, so I understand both ends of it. I'm also a licensed real estate agent too. The number one mistake I see, besides not being able to calculate ARV properly, which really goes hand in hand with that, is most of the time inexperienced wholesalers cherry pick comps when they're trying to run comps. Okay, when you're running comps, you need to understand what comps means. Comps means comparable properties, okay? So when you are picking comparable properties, you need to be as close to the subject property, if at all possible. If it's in a subdivision, then you need to be using comparable sales from that immediate subdivision. If you can't find recent comparable sales in that immediate subdivision, I usually go a little bit further back in time in that same subdivision, and then I compare those prices to other houses in the area, maybe not in the exact same subdivision or neighborhood, but maybe in an immediate neighborhood close by that is a comparable house, similar year built, similar square footage, similar style of house. If your subject property is a ranch house, you need to be using ranch homes as comps. If your comparable property is a 2005 built 2-story cookie cutter house in a subdivision, you need to be using comps that were built in the early 2000s, typically before the real estate crash in 2007. They need to be in a subdivision. They need to be of comparable size and comparable style. So you need to make sure that you are choosing comparable properties when you're running comps. Do not go grab properties from 1, 2, 3 miles away and ignore the comparables in the immediate neighborhood, because you're only shooting yourself in the foot. If you're wholesaling deals, or maybe you're an agent and you're new at this and you're trying to sell these deals to an investor, experienced investors are going to know how to run comparables. We're going to know how to run comps, because everything in this business is contingent upon the numbers working. And the key point in calculating whether numbers work on a deal is understanding how to accurately assess ARV. If you are wrong on ARV, all of your numbers after that are completely wrong, because that's your starting point. So you have to get really, really good at analyzing comps and assessing comps, and it's not always easy. So don't cherry pick comps from 2 miles away. I've seen some wholesalers send me deals and they're cherry picking comps from a different school district in another county. That's another tip, I just thought about. If you're running comps, especially if you're in suburbia, school districts matter more than anything. So try to pick comparables in the same elementary school district if at all possible, okay? If you go outside of that area, or maybe you have a house that's on the border of a school district, even though that other comp might be like a quarter of a mile away, you should take that other comp that's in another school district with a grain of salt, because a lot of times, especially in suburbia, the school districts matter. People want to be in specific school districts, and if you're not using comps within that immediate school district, you might be making a mistake. Also, in terms of age of properties, make sure you're choosing houses of similar age or similar style. If you look at comps and you're looking at neighborhoods, you will find that typically in an urban area, you're going to have these sort of, let's call them development rings. You're going to get as close to the city as possible. And typically, like when you get to the core of a city, you're going to have like older housing stock. And the further and further you get away from the core of the city, the newer and newer the housing stock is going to be. So, and typically development comes in waves. So for example, I mentioned earlier, right, you might have a 2004 built house where there was kind of like a building boom in the early 2000s right before the real estate crash. So if you're choosing comparables, make sure you're picking comps within that early 2000s range. But typically a lot of these newer houses are going to be like 2008 when the real estate market crashed. Pretty much all building just completely stopped, right? So you had this time period from 2008, maybe you had some stuff in 2009, 2010, but there wasn't a lot. And then 2011, 2012 was like the next wave of building, and those are typically different style. When you get into 2011, 2012, houses started getting into sort of different styles. So you need to pay attention to the style of the property. If it's a brick ranch house, you need to be choosing comps that are also brick ranches. If your property is a split level house or a split foyer house, you need to try to pick other comparables that are split foyer houses. If you have trouble doing that, you need to get as close to possible. And what I like to do is calculate an average price per square foot in that area. Also understand that if you have finished area below grade, like in a basement below grade square footage is not worth the same amount price per square foot as above grade square footage. So if you have a house with a finished basement, you need to figure out how much square footage is above grade and how much is below grade, and you're gonna have to assign different price per square foot values to above and below grade. Typically, below grade is about half, on average, maybe 60% of the value of above grade square footage. Now, obviously that's dependent on the area, but generally speaking, for the most part, it's worth about half, thereabouts. So make sure you're paying attention to that. Calculate your average price per square foot. And what I also like to do when I run comps is I categorize them into different categories. So I say fixer-upper investor pricing. So I figure out, like, let me find in fixer-upper comps in the area and figure out who bought it, and if it was an LLC or something like that, I know that an investor bought that house. And I'm going to categorize all those houses into one group, and I'm going to say, I know in this area that investors are paying between 100 and 120 for this style of house. That also, if you're wholesaling properties, then you can say, well, if I can buy it for like 80 or 90, then I know I could probably sell it to another investor for in the hundreds, right? Because you know what other investors are buying comparable properties for in that area, and make sure you're doing very recent numbers. I also like to categorize as is, but in good condition. So this would be like a house where maybe, because I deal with probate inheritance, a lot of times we get grandma houses where grandma and grandpa lived in this house. They took excellent care of this house. Actually, I just went to one today. I looked at it this morning. House was built in 1989, but it was in impeccable condition, but it was very dated. But they had taken very, very good care of this house, made sure all the maintenance was done right. Someone could move into this house tomorrow and live in it. And although the kitchen and the bathrooms and the paint colors and the wallpaper or whatever is not to current standards, it's completely livable as is today. They don't have to make a bunch of repairs. I like to categorize that. So I like to figure out average price per square footage for those as is but in good condition houses. And then what I also like to do is categorize kind of as is but fixer-upper condition. That's usually kind of similar to the investors. And then I'll say, I also create another category, what I call lipstick on a pig. So I look at houses that have been sort of updated, but we just call them lipstick on a pig, right? They just did carpet and paint. They really didn't update them all that much. And then I look at like full rehabs, like nicely done, well-executed rehabs. What are those selling for? And if you can figure out that price per square foot, sometimes you might find that in a given neighborhood, all of the comps are just lipstick on a pig comps. And what does that mean? That means if you're going to renovate that house, you don't need to do a crazy bang up rehab job like they do on HGTV. You can just do lipstick on a pig and sell it. I hope this helps you. Make sure you're not cherry picking comps. Make sure you're getting better at comps. If you want to learn more in depth about running comps, put comps in the comments there and I'll do a little course and help you out with that. So thanks for checking out this video. I'm Brad with probatehouseguy.com. If you're interested in working with me, learning about probate and inheritance properties, I'd be happy to work with you. Reach out to me on probatehouseguy.com. Thanks for checking out this video. Have a great day. Bye-bye.